Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Okay, so I know I don't usually do a pre-show intro for Whiskey Congress. We just jump right in. This week is a bit different because we have to make a correction. At some point in the show, we're talking about Colin Kaepernick, and we mistakenly said that he had only been out of football for 1 year. It is, in fact, 2. We misspoke. You're going to hear that. We were wrong. Deal with it. We also talked a fair bit about the Jussie Smollett situation, and we had this conversation on Friday. I'm recording this right now, right before we release on Sunday the 17th. And so a lot's changed in that story since we recorded. So when we talk about that, please know that that's the mindset it's coming from. Lastly, we did not talk about AOC or Congresswoman Omar from Minnesota and their interesting statements from earlier in the week. Not trying to avoid it, not trying to protect Democrats for all of you who are going to call us homers, or Mia Homer. But we will try to get a bonus episode done tonight and publish it probably Tuesday. Anyway, but we talked about a bunch of fun stuff, and like I said, among them, Colin Kaepernick settling and Eric Reid settling with the NFL and the tight-lipped nature with which that was handled. That being said, we also talk about a new whiskey, so I'll stop yapping. Enjoy. Welcome again to Whiskey Congress. Once again, we have a new whiskey to talk about. Maker's Mark 46, which I have never had before until today.
Just shocking.
It kind of is.
I mean, we consumed a lot of Maker's Mark over the years.
That used to be one of my go-tos at the bar.
Right.
Still still do now and then.
I usually, when I go places and get in Manhattan, if I don't see anything that really stands out, most decent, like a steak place or something like that,
right,
they'll have a Maker's Mark 46. And that's kind of my go-to for a better Manhattan when I'm out. Like I said, at a steak place or a place that doesn't have a great bourbon selection, but they have it. And to me, it's a solid. I mean, I like Maker's Mark, solid bourbon, and I think that this is a step up from that. I mean, is it? I mean, I think the price point is about 33% more than whatever Maker's Mark is.
Yeah, so, I think I paid $40 for it roughly.
Right. I mean, you can get a bottle of Maker's Mark for $28.
Yep.
So, is it worth that much? Maybe.
I'm giving it a 91.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it a solid 90. I mean, some of the flavor notes, it's just nice and smooth, not a ton of bite. It is. I think it comes in at like a 90 proof,
47%, so 94.
So 94. So yeah, I mean it's got, but I mean for something that strong, you're creeping up closer to 100 proof, and there is no after bite. There's no
smooth,
punch
to
in
me.
The face. It's very smooth. Really kind of a man's man bourbon, if you will. You've got the oak, you've got the cinnamon. There's almost kind of like a leathery taste, but not in a bad way. But there is a hint of like sweetness, a little caramel to it. I guess if you had to, one way to describe it, it's a little drier than some of your other bourbons, just because it's not as sweet. It doesn't carry some of those like vanilla and flavor notes that you get in some of the, in some of your standard traditional bourbons. But I mean, I think it's a solid. I mean, I think I'll did I give it a score already?
You said 90.
Yeah, 90. So, no, I mean, I'm a big fan of Maker's Mark 46. It's a go-to. It's a reminder I should probably grab a bottle and put it in my house.
Am I nuts, or is it, I won't say hard to find. It's not hard to find in an Angel's Envy or Blanton sort of way. But it's not something you find everywhere. Or is it? Maybe I just never looked for it.
I think it's, you got to be looking for it. I mean, I've seen it everywhere.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think you walk into your liquor store, you should, if there's Maker's Mark, chances are there's a Maker's Mark 46, unless you're in an area that doesn't have a big bourbon, market
demand, okay, yeah.
or demand, which seems to be everywhere at the moment. I read a lot of Forbes and kind of what they say about the whiskey market. They have a guy who writes about it pretty extensively, and the whiskey market isn't going anywhere.
Right.
So
Don't worry about up.
Right, which is good. And then they were, giving tips on if you want to get in the whiskey market. And it's just like, listen, if you're not distilling right now, then you better come up with some, nifty device that distillers can use. Because you want to talk about
if only we knew of a company that could speed up the process.
Yeah, but that's true. But if you're looking to get into distilling whiskey,
traditionally,
traditionally.
As long as you have 7 years of cash to back you up to your first.
Exactly. You're just going to need some time. But actually, it may not be a bad idea to get into distilling whiskey if you got the money to front it. Where's the market going? I don't know. It seems like it's only going up. But,
it does. It's a weird market right now though, because the Chinese and more than Chinese Indian populations are consuming a lot more whiskey, which when you throw in 1 billion of people in each country changes the demand structure.
It does.
And now there's a big tariff on whiskey, I think, going over there. So if we send whiskey to India, it gets jacked up in price. Now I've got a bottle of Indian Scotch style whiskey here.
So do I.
Okay.
Yeah, I have
Black Dog.
You have Black Dog. I have Amrut.
Okay. We'll try that.
We haven't tried it?
I don't think so.
This is my second bottle. It's actually really good. It's a Scotch style, single malt Scotch style from India, and it's actually really, really good.
Well, Black Dog is when I was in India on business, that got me through, and I was unable to find it in the States until I went to New Jersey and was hanging out in a neighborhood that was largely Indian. Okay. So anyway, all right. Speaking of Indian tariffs,
just an interesting thought. Just you hanging out with a bunch of people from India.
Well, my last project was owned by.
True.
And that neighborhood reflected the industry. So, in addition to tariffs on whiskey, let's try to do as quick through the Trump thing as possible. I'm tired of talking about the guy. We got to talk about it. The spending bill passed. There won't be another government shutdown. Trump handled it the way you'd expect, with a mild tantrum followed by, I'm going to declare a national emergency so I can drag money out of other sources to build my wall because I need to build my wall. I think that's nuts in terms of logistics. I don't think we have a national crisis at the border. I'm sure someone out there is going to hear that and tell me you don't know what it's like in California. Well, actually, I do.
This is what I'm thinking. I think, my initial thought was, no, there's no. Where I stand on this. I'm relatively neutral. Either build it or don't, but let's not hold up the government for it. I'm not necessarily. I lean more towards building it. As one, it showed I think it would be a good faith movement by the Democrats. I think it would. You give Trump a win on this, and then you beat him up on some of the other things. I think we do need a physical barrier at some point in places across the border.
I've never argued that,
and I truly believe that a lot of money needs to go into technology and upgrading their homeland security and border patrols capabilities at legal points of entry, and along with their ability to monitor some of the more vast places of the border in the meantime, because the wall's not going to go up immediately. That being said, with this state of emergency, initially my thought was, well, this is just going to get tied up in the courts will knock it down, and then Trump will be able to say he fought the good fight. He'll blame Democrats, he'll blame liberals, he'll blame the court, and he will use that as a rallying cry, leading up to 2020. Although I don't believe that Justice Roberts would actually allow this decision to be made prior to the election. I think this is something that by the time it does get to the Supreme Court, they're going to sit on it until after the 2020 election, if they don't, boot it back down to lower courts anyway. But just thinking about what has been going on kind of in the forefront and then behind the scenes, I think Trump and his team and the administration have been trying to kind of anticipate some of the legal obstacles that they were going to have with this national emergency.
Right.
And so, sending the troops down to the border, months ago, back during the midterms, that was setting this up. Right, because now he can say, listen, this is how serious it was. I had to send troops down, and you got states pulling their National Guard back. Okay, fine, whatever. But that he's still trying to set a precedent from a legal standpoint to say, this is why I'm doing this, right? And then he can point to he's gonna point to drug numbers. He's gonna point to, violence and all this other stuff. And some of those numbers really don't work in his favor. So that's where I'm a little bit wary of this strategy that they're going with. Border crossings, illegal border crossings are down by illegal immigrants or illegal aliens or whatever you want to say. Illegal immigrants commit less crime, than
per capita, right?
Per capita than Americans. So like those numbers aren't in their favor. Now it's not to say that they don't commit crime, right? And part of the problem is that they're undocumented. So, it's hard to really gauge how much, what exactly they're doing, right? We don't, they're undocumented people. So how are we really counting them, and how are we really taking into account what their actions are, good or bad? So when you put all that into the mix, will you have a sympathetic court that says, yep, that's an emergency and we got to get the wall built? The other issue is your solution is something that's going to take 3, 4, 5 years to execute. So
if not more, right? I mean, depending on, if you try to go 2,500 miles worth of actual wall, you're probably talking 10 years, 15 years, guessing, knowing it's a government thing and there's a whole lot of shit that has to go in.
But even, I mean, he's the money he's pulled together to pay for this comes to about $8 billion.
Okay.
And we said earlier that 1.5 isn't going to get it, 5 billion isn't going to get it, 8 billion isn't going to get you, 2,200 miles of wall anytime soon, right? I mean, it'll get you a fraction of that. So again, just kind of throwing it all out there. And I don't want to make a bold prediction or a bold pronouncement. It's early in this process, but those are some of the things that you have to kind of kick around when you're thinking about how this process is going to go. He makes a declaration. Obviously, groups are going to sue, and then how it makes its way through the court is really what will kind of determine how this all plays out.
Did you hear his speech where he referred to the MS-13 gang monsters?
Yeah, the gang monsters.
Thousands of gang monsters.
All I could think of was Monsters, Inc. when I heard of it. I mean, I've got a 4-year-old. She loves Sully, and all I could think of was Monsters, Inc. So
gang monsters. Oh, right. Fuck's sake.
I mean, and listen, MS-13 they got some bad guys.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just
they're Salvadoran drug gang. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're as bad as it gets. So, I mean, I think it's important that we acknowledge, kind of what you're up against that could, the potential dangers that could come across an unprotected border, right? I mean, let's not downplay who and what MS-13 is, which some Democrats have done that, right? Like, they're just like, oh, well, MS-13 isn't that big. No, they're a legitimate threat. Let's not.
They're in pockets, right? But they're not crossing the border in droves, armed and firing.
Well, those guys are coming across. Like, I mean, they're coming right across the border legally through the ports of entry, right? I mean, they're a drug cartel. They pay good money to have very good fake passports and IDs or whatever they need to get across the border. Like, I mean, these guys. Yes, do some cross. Illegal. Yeah, sure,
probably.
But I mean, a majority of these guys are crossing.
More to the point, though. Whether they're getting across in points of entry or whatever, building a wall ain't going to stop MS-13, and it ain't going to stop drugs. Will it stop people on foot? It'll stop some human trafficking, sure. But the big problems of drugs and people with ill intent, they're getting across the border whether there's a wall or not.
True.
That's where I come in.
I mean, I still say just, part of me says just build it and let's move on. But anyway, moving past.
Let's get beyond the wall. Trying to go a little Game of Thrones on you there. All right, so totally changing gears. I've been following the Owen Benjamin, Alex Jones, Joe Rogan dispute way too intently. This is me with time on my hands and no longer doing JFK research. This is why you should not discourage the JFK research.
I never discouraged it. I never discouraged it.
No,
but
you didn't.
I did. I mean, I did try to put a cap on it at times.
All right. Well, I don't know when you discover. All right. So this feud's gotten kind of ugly. And Alex Jones put out a video the other day of Joe Rogan with a bunch of guys. Did you happen to see it or no?
No.
Okay. It was Joe Rogan and a couple of his buddies, and they were talking about how they went to see Planet of the Apes, and they end up in a neighborhood that was completely black. And he was like, I went to see Planet of the Apes. We're in Planet of the Apes, and we were basically in Africa. And then there's a look from Steve. That's why we should do more video. So he said that, and he was probably high and obviously goofing around. And I think based on a history, even Alex Jones said Joe Rogan's no racist, and Alex Jones is trying to smear him any way he can. He now does his show with a stuffed fake snake, that's Sneaky Snake, that he calls Joe Rogan or whatever. So
who does?
Alex Jones, yes. He's got a,
How does
6
he
foot
even,
long.
what show?
Infowars is still up on his Infowars channel.
Infowars.com
Yeah,
or whatever.
right.
Okay.
He's just not on. But I'm watching it on YouTube, so it's getting there somehow.
Okay.
Anyway, so then this DJ Ebro from New York City,
yes,
who I know nothing about, called out Joe Rogan, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on it because you're not. Obviously, I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan. I've never made any attempt to hide that. You are. I would consider you indifferent to the guy. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's funny. I have a DJ Ebro playlist on my
that's funny.
Apple Music. That's why when you said it at first, I was just like, weird. That's
when you texted me and said, who the fuck is Ebro? I think it was more along the lines of, how do you know who the fuck Ebro is? But anyway, so, Owen Benjamin has gotten to the point of saying just blatantly racist shit and then walking it back enough that he can defend himself. But it's when you're praising, he said things like the Germans in the 40s did a lot of good things. Like, dude, really? You want to play that card? You're being gross, and you're trying to be, and then you're being a pussy and trying to backtrack and go, I never said this. I said, fuck off. You know what you're saying.
They gave us BMW.
Right. You know what you're saying. We know what you're saying. You're just giving yourself a backtrack. He's doing this all while pounding White Claws and talking about how manly he is. Yeah. The manly man drinking White Claws and bragging about how he's got a mustache and he's drinking White Claws. Like, this guy is fucking gone. He's just out there.
Yeah, he's a bizarre dude. I mean, I know you sent me stuff of his that I've listened to
grudgingly.
Yes, very very grudgingly. But I don't have a ton to say about it. I mean, I'm so removed. Right. I mean, he's in a car with his friends. I mean, is it
not in a car? It was in the studio. So
he was describing the experience.
Yeah, he was saying that he ended up in didn't expect to end up in an all black neighborhood, and he did. And they watched Planet of the Apes. And again, he's high as a fucking kite. I guarantee you, because he's Joe Rogan. So yeah, he's probably trying to make a joke, and not the greatest one. But I don't think this gets to brand Joe Rogan as some piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, he's a comic. And so,
talking to other comics,
right? I mean, he's got a history with people. I mean, again, I will always contend that we don't know these people from Apple,
sure,
right? I've spent zero time with Joe Rogan. I don't know much about him other than what I've seen on his show, and UFC fights and
right.
and his stints on TV. So. It's just I don't even know. I guarantee you some people will be like, oh, that's unfortunate or whatever. I mean, he said it. I mean, I guess who was in the car with him? Were there other black people in the car?
He was in the studio,
in the studio when he said it. I don't know. I
know there were no other black people in the room at the time that I saw.
I guess I don't know, Jim. Honestly, I don't care. Like it doesn't. Like I don't care. Right. I don't have any. Is it racist? I don't know. No, probably not. I don't know, man. I don't give a shit.
All right.
I mean, there's just so much.
So moving on.
Right. I mean, there's just other shit to worry about. Like I don't give a shit about Joe Rogan and
Owen Benjamin
ending up in an all black neighborhood and having a comment about it after seeing Planet of the Apes. And by the way, did you see the new
newest one with Woody Harrelson? No.
Yeah.
No, I have not.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. The first one was really good.
Yeah, they were all good.
I think I only watched the first one start to finish. I've seen a few minutes of the last one was War for the Planet of the Apes.
Something like that. Yeah.
I've seen a few minutes of it. I mean, the stories are classic stories, and then well acted and well put together. CGI obviously makes life a lot easier when you're doing that stuff. But I have
they're,
not seen.
they're worth a watch. I mean, if you catch them on HBO or you catch them on cable or whatever, they're worth a watch.
Okay, I can tell you clearly have no desire to discuss this anymore. Simply by you just saying you had no desire to discuss this anymore. Something I don't know if I want to talk about, but we kind of have to because we took so much shit over the Jussie Smollett thing on social media and text messages and everything. Kind of hit a new... there's some not breaking news, but some new news on that. So he identifies two people in a grainy surveillance camera. Apparently the police track these guys down, and they don't seem like the MAGA types.
Well, he was very adamant in that they were two white men that attacked him, and the police tracked down the two guys in the video where he said those two guys in the video are the two guys that attacked me. Police track them down at Chicago O'Hare Airport, and they're two African men, because I think they're from Nigeria.
Correct.
Or Kenya.
No, Nigeria.
And I mean they're African, right? Like, I mean, if Joe Rogan would have ended up in their neighborhood, he would have been uncomfortable apparently. And they both worked in some form or fashion on the show Empire, right? Like, so now it feels like, you're saying they're white, but you're also saying that these are the two guys who definitely attacked you. They also work on Empire, so, and he's on the show Empire, so I mean, the story didn't feel right from the beginning when you just laid it out. You know, it's 2:00 in the morning. He went to Subway. It was sub-zero temperatures. They threw bleach on him and they put a noose around his neck, but then they ran away and, you know, yelled something about MAGA country, and then he walked back to his apartment. He left the noose on his neck. He didn't ask for help. He didn't whatever. You know, there were some issues with him giving over his phone records. You know, and he eventually did, but they, you know.
Well, so he talked about that on Good Morning America today. I actually watched the. In my life now, I can watch clips from Good Morning America.
You got to get you a job, man.
Got no job. I'm working on stuff. I just have time on my hands. But anyway, so
I'm doing stuff.
How do you get fired on your day off? Anyway,
build a clubhouse.
So in his interview with Robin Roberts, Jussie Smollett comes off very logical, very clear. He tells his side of the story. He claims he never claimed he had a broken rib. That was, you know, there was a lot of inaccurate information because a lot of people said, well, he was dancing his ass off the next, 2 nights later, and if you've had a broken rib, you ain't doing that.
He ain't doing that.
But he said he never said that.
Real drunk.
He did show, he did have video or pictures of his face being a bit busted up. In his version of the story that I heard today, he got into a fight. He didn't just get jumped by these guys. They got into an altercation and traded blows. And when he was asked why he didn't call the police initially, he said, I was didn't want to come off as weak. He's like, I'm gay. I'm not weak. And I just wanted to handle it. But then I realized I should do this. He claims that he did not still have the noose around his neck. It was kind of like draped over his neck, like he was just hanging onto it after the fact. And he came off as credible, and apparently he came off as consistent, but then again, he's an actor. So to make me believe you when I'm, gonna want to give you the benefit of the doubt, because I don't want to ever feel like I called this guy out for being being a liar, being a phony, and end up being wrong. I'd rather trust him until I can't anymore. However, with these two guys getting arrested, maybe something is going to come out of this. I mean, when we talked about this before, you predicted that it would eventually just kind of drift off and we would never find anything out. Well, now we got two guys who claim they had nothing to do with it, but they're supposedly the guys in the picture, and he did say those are the guys. Now, I've seen the picture. That could have been you and me.
Yeah.
I mean, that picture told me nothing about really build, height, color. I mean, nothing.
Right. So I mean, and which makes sense because again, it's 2:00 in the morning on a sub-zero. I mean, so no matter who you are or what your plan is, you're going to be bundled up.
Sure.
You're going to have gloves, probably a scarf, maybe. I mean, even if you do have a ski mask, it's not. I mean, listen.
You're not going to stand out for having a ski mask on
right.
2 degree night.
I've spent time in Chicago in the winter, and trust me, a ski mask, like it took me one winter to figure out why ski masks were a thing. I mean, in those type of temperatures, it makes sense that you're not going to be able to tell who's who or what. So what comes of this, I don't know. I have to be honest. The story doesn't vibe with me. It just doesn't vibe with me. It didn't, like, when I first came out, you know, and you read the details, I agree. Like, none of it, like, the fact pattern just doesn't make sense. And, you know, as a black American male, for me to, you know, it's just like there's almost this, like, tribe mentality. Right?
Sure.
And
and everything in America right now is a tribe mentality.
Right, it's a tribe mentality. So if you come out and just be like, man, this story does not vibe, then you're going to get attacked by the Dr. Jason Johnsons and the Karen Hunters and the pick black whoever, and it's just like, well, if you don't believe this story, then you're feeding into the racist system and blah, 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 blah. You know, why is it so unbelievable that this happened when, and then they go to all these other, you know, kind of anecdotal things, and, you know, they can point, and listen, on the flip side, there are plenty of people who have perpetrated legitimate racist attacks against people.
Sure.
Where you can point to and just like, see, this is a thing in this country, so why is it so unbelievable that this happened? Because, well, it's because of where he was. Like, when you look at the actual facts, you look at the city of Chicago, you look at the actual particular specific fact pattern, right? The actual neighborhood that he's in. You look at the fact that it's 2:00 in the morning. Who's actually, like, how did they track him? The fact that it is sub-zero temperature.
They had a noose with them, allegedly.
Right, like, they had a noose and they had bleach with them. And, you know, people point to, well, they found a bottle. Like, they found it days later.
That was one thing. When they raided these guys' houses, they found bottles of bleach.
Hey,
well, if you raid my fucking house, you're going to find bottles of bleach.
Right, dude, my dad was a bleach Nazi. He bleached everything. My dad used to bleach. I went to Catholic school. I had to wear a white, you know, either button-up or polo shirt every day. And I sweat a lot. I'm a heavy sweater.
Okay.
Right? I mean, this is, if you spend any time with me, this is something that you know.
I'm aware.
And my shirts would turn basically yellow, right? Like, you sit in these classrooms. We didn't have, like, we had heat, but we didn't have air conditioning. So I would sweat through my clothes. My dad would bleach the shit out of my clothes to the point where literally one day, multiple days in class, like, I pulled my sleeve off my shirt. Where it literally, like, at the seam here.
It got so dried out from bleach.
From bleach that I would move, and then the sleeve came down my arm, and I was basically wearing a tank top on one side because my dad would bleach my clothes so much. So
what you're saying is your dad attacked Jussie Smollett.
Yes. Yes. Which
case closed.
But my dad hates the show Empire, so my dad could actually be a suspect.
Does he actually hate the show? Is that true?
Right, yeah, he does. Hates it. My dad's a Power guy. My dad loves the show Power on Starz, but he hates Empire, so I mean, it's just, my dad could do it. But my dad's got 2 fake knees, so I don't know how quick he'd be moving. So I just feel like Jussie Smollett would have a chance. I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, so we've gotten off the topic.
Not eliminated as a suspect.
Right. God, what if the FBI shows up at my dad?
Sorry.
Shit. Dad, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of your pro bono, Pop.
So, anyway, I agree. It's still...
Son of the year right here.
Yeah, exactly. You get your dad framed by the FBI, and then you get him out.
I defend him for free.
But, so, one thing that I don't think did get reported enough, because there was talk about, you know, he received a letter with a white powder that ended up being either Tylenol or aspirin, I forget which it was, meaning Jussie Smollett at the
not my dad.
Not your dad. Right? All right. So anyway, people were saying, like, are these things related? What he said in his interview today is he gets all these threats all the time because he's a very outspoken LGBTQ.
Not uncommon.
Yeah. All right. I mean,
none of that's uncommon.
I mean, he's a black celebrity who defends LGBTQ.
A celebrity.
He's a celebrity, period.
People are crazy.
Fucking someone shot President Reagan to impress Jodie Foster. I mean, people do crazy shit with celebrities.
I know. It's true.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
A little bit of a changing gear. But, yeah, so the idea that this is some isolated thing that he would be disliked is not crazy. I mean, he probably deals with a lot of shit. And all right, so details of the case aside, I kind of give him a lot of respect for saying, you know, just because you know, your Hollywood spin or your national spin on I'm gay, I'm going to be, you know, some weak person. Fuck off, I'll fight back. And I don't know whether it's true or not. I respected the sentiment. Now,
okay, I mean,
there's more to Well, no, I think
Okay, that's fine.
The original visual I got was basically him like curling up and just getting the shit kicked out of him. Apparently, he threw some fists back. So show him some respect.
I guess, man.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, I think before we go to, I respect him and he's so brave.
I didn't say those things.
Figure out if it actually happened? Can we just figure it out?
Would you agree though the chances of us actually figuring out what happened have gone up in the last couple of days?
Yeah.
Because now there's
right.
arrests.
So the question is, are these? I mean, they're talking to these two guys, and do they roll over and say
he paid us?
Or maybe it was something else.
Right.
Maybe it was he owed them money, or they had some other agreement. I mean, there's endless things. Some very sketchy, others not as sketchy. It goes wrong. They get into a fight. He knows he's going back to a situation where, because the fact that he was on the phone, with his manager. And you have to wonder, did he promise these guys, hey, I'm going to get you guys more prominent roles on the show? And then it doesn't materialize. They track him down, and then they're like, hey, what's going on?
Sure.
The news thing is weird.
Really weird.
And so that's where it's confusing. Well, not confusing, but it's just like, okay. It does, like, that's where I say it doesn't make sense that it was a
random attack.
Not a random attack. Clearly, I don't think it's a random attack because of that. But, the argument that it was a disagreement between them and him gone wrong, and he just tried to cover it up, that's where I lose that vibe because, really? So it's just like, well, if he doesn't give us, if he can't figure out how to get us on the show, we're going to put a noose around his neck? Right. Two guys from Nigeria. Like I don't know. I don't know. So the story doesn't. Like I said, the fact pattern doesn't make sense. It does. I mean, you don't have to be a detective to figure out that. Listen, something is amiss here. Sorry, but we have multiple cases of people who cry wolf. Right. Yeah. I mean, like you can go. Like, listen, I can give you an example in Texas, Georgia, and New Jersey of women who said that they were kidnapped and raped by black guys. And it come to find out, in two of the situations, it was a consensual situation where the girl got involved with a couple guys, did a gangbang, mad at the boyfriend, got afraid that the boyfriend or her reputation, and so she cries rape. Another situation was a girl didn't want to get married down in Texas, so she ran off into the woods, ripped her clothes off, hung out for, a week, and then walked into a church, and then all of a sudden her story falls apart. So the idea of someone lying about an event like this isn't something that we haven't seen before. And just because he's black and gay, he's got a shield around him, right? I mean, like, black people and gay people are both just like, you got to believe him and, all this other shit. But listen, if the fact pattern stinks, like, I have to look at it and just feel like, man, like something about this doesn't feel right. And I would ask those people, listen, what if this were a white woman? What if this were a white woman, same fact pattern, take away the noose and just add something, vulgar or whatever, right? Would you, black constituent, would you believe her? Would you have her back? Right, like would you be going all in like you are for Jussie Smollett over the same? And I don't know. I feel like the answer. I think we know the answer is no. Given if the fact pattern is the same, 2:00 in the morning, sub-0 degrees, coming from Subway, everything's fine. She's got a mark on her face. Whatever. I don't know. So I don't buy his story.
Okay.
I don't buy it. I think it's bullshit. The fact pattern doesn't make sense. It's not getting better for him. As the more information that we find out, it's not getting clearer as to what the fuck happened. So,
what makes it all right? So, again, I'm not gonna call bullshit yet. I'm willing to let the facts come out.
I'm willing to let them come out too. I'm just saying, as it stands right now, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't buy it.
One thing he said that I thought was well articulated was when asked why he didn't turn over his phone. He said basically during the police questioning, they asked him, "Can we give your phone to a tech?" And he's like, "No, I've got pictures on there I don't want you to see. I've got my partner's phone number in there. I've got my coworkers' phone numbers in there. My family's phone numbers in there. I don't want to give this thing up and just let it."
That was overblown from the beginning because all they had to do and what they did was subpoena the records from the carrier.
He gave the records.
Yeah,
he didn't give the phone.
He downloaded them onto a spreadsheet and then removed certain information and then gave it to them. Okay, which is fine, whatever. They didn't need that though because they were able to pull the records from the phone carrier anyway. Right, to confirm.
People made a big deal out of him. He doesn't want to give up the phone. Well,
which I wouldn't want to give up my phone either.
Right.
I don't care what you're accusing me of.
Or in this case, you're not. You're making the accusation, so it's
well,
not even
whatever.
like
Accusing
if it's to clear your name, you'll do more.
I mean, it's just like I'm going to need some time with my phone before you get my phone. Just
hell, Tom Brady beat the shit out of his phone before he turned it over to the NFL,
and I defended it on that. Like, listen, the dude is married to a supermodel, right? Just that alone,
right?
Like, I mean,
and he just lives a job that he travels a lot. I'm guessing there's some pictures on there that someone like me might not mind seeing.
Well, in any and all of those things. Right, like I mean, it just like there's a number of scenarios in my head. I could think of pictures on my phone that maybe funny joke, but if they got out, would not be perceived as such. Personal, intimate, whatever you want to call it. And then just other applications that you just don't really want people to have access to when you hand over your phone freely. Not every single app is password and thumbprint protected. Some are.
Well, and you don't know what they're going to get into.
Right. So just handing over your phone, I don't care what there's a lot of information on these phones. It's not like you're handing them over your Motorola Razr.
Right.
If that's the case, then okay, fine, here, take it. But I mean, with these phones, like your entire life, like I run my entire life through my phone.
They could find my pasta carbonara recipe if they tried hard enough. Can't have that.
Which is good.
Thank you.
That's some good shit you do there.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm just
the case goes on.
Yes, the case goes on, but now I think the chance of an actual resolution is way higher because there are things still happening. So we will see. Before we get into, I want to talk football quite a bit actually, but before we do that, we have to talk about the 420 bill because there are now bills on the floor of the House and Senate to end the federal ban on cannabis. I seem to be, we've had a few conversations off the air on this, and I get the sense that I am far more optimistic about this than you are. To me, it feels like Congress is trying to actually, I won't say work together, that would be way too generous, but there seems to be, the wave is towards decriminalizing, descheduling, and it's on both sides of the aisle, at least to some degree.
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. It's going to be a slow process. Part of that is because we have an election coming up in 2020.
Right.
And the current administration will use it one way or another to their advantage.
If they're smart about it.
I think the smart way for them to go is to legalize it. I think it's for them to push for legalization. I think it's for Trump to openly push for it. You now have an attorney general who's not going to give you pushback, who has been confirmed.
Right.
But I think that, he's been confirmed. He's not an advocate, but he's not going to stand in the way of it and has come out and said, listen, let's not rain down hell on the states that have approved it. Just let them do their thing.
Unlike Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, who wanted to...
And there was some shit that came out about him that I think...
Oh, I don't know this.
Yeah, there was... we'll have to talk. We'll talk about it offline.
Okay, wow,
Well, it's not a big deal. Well, okay, I want to get it right, and I don't want to derail us by going back and looking up the exact quotes.
All right, I'm to be continued.
Right, to be continued.
So anyway, that's on the floor of the House.
It is on the floor, but I think my point is, Trump administration. If I were them, I would say, listen, let's push to get this legalized. Let's push to get it decriminalized. Let's push to, add something that, if you were busted for, on the federal level, if you were busted for marijuana only, or go through and, maybe if you got a weapons charge, that stays. But if you were busted for marijuana, right, under a certain amount, right, like if you tried to bring in, 5 kilos, then, maybe we'll work with you a little bit. But I mean, I think that to a certain degree, you have to kind of go through, if you go through and you say, all right, if you were busted for weed, we're going to wipe it out, and you legalize it. Like that's the sort of thing where I say, there was a lot of talk about this crime bill, and, I said, you know what, it's good, but ultimately it doesn't solve the problem of how people get into jail. Right. Like we need to stem the flow of people going into jail, not
for nonviolent people.
Right. For nonviolent people, and this is a good start. The first step is a good start, but really the big thing is stemming the flow of people going in.
Right.
And if you couple what you've already done with the First Step Act with going through and say we're going to legalize marijuana, we're going to wipe out the records of people who were busted for marijuana and nonviolent offenses. Then all of a sudden, you catch a lot of people's ear, a lot of those constituents who are not a fan of yours, who are not going to vote for you. All of a sudden, you pull them back into the middle. You get them back on the fence, leaning your direction.
Yeah,
right? And that's something that you can campaign on. Campaigning on the promise of, I'll do it if you elect me. I mean, that leaves people weary.
I guarantee you any Democrat will be pushing this. Any Democratic nominee for president will be pushing for descheduling. Cory Booker, for crying out loud, sponsored one of the bills.
Yes, but that's why if I'm Trump, I take that away from you.
That is the smart move. The only question I have...
The same reason why I would say if I'm a Democrat, I'll give you a fucking wall. I'll give you a wall. I'll take that away from you. That's just one less thing that you can put that feather in your cap, right? But that wall isn't going to be built by the time the election gets here. You're only going to have pieces and parts of it. And you can argue the merits of the wall after the fact, but you give it to him just so that he can, you can have that and you can remove it as a rallying cry, right? And then you go to, if I'm Trump, I take this and I take this away from the Democrats as something that they can say, well, he's not going to do it, but I will, right? If I'm them, I'm saying, we're going to do it. Let's do it now. F them. Right?
Steve, I think that is the smart move. The only question I have is, does he run the risk of losing his pearl-clutching, older MAGA crowd that just can't?
I mean, if he's got the right people around him, which I guess he does. I mean, he's in the White House.
That can be debated in all kinds of directions.
Right, but I mean, no. I mean, you're not going to listen. A majority of the people who support him are cannabis advocates.
I mean, well, I don't know about that, but more of the people who support him will not waver.
A majority of the people who support him are cannabis advocates, right? Because they smoke it. Like, they'll scream and yell about law and order all day, but they have no problem, smoking a joint, hitting a bowl, using a vape pen or whatever in the privacy of their own home. And then they'll scream and, if you use cocaine, heroin, or meth, you're a drug addict. If you're just smoking weed in your house, then you're fine. Which, okay, fine. I'm not arguing with you, but it's all still, as of right now, it's all still fucking legal. So.
And what percentage of Wall Street is doing coke right now?
Right. Just doing rails off of strippers' asses right now. So I don't think he loses any noticeable percentage of his base by turning around and backing this. None. I mean, I won't say none.
His words were, "I could shoot someone in the face on Fifth Avenue," and
right.
But he was not wrong.
Right. I mean, who he loses is negligible, and I mean, it's obvious. It is plain as day that it doesn't. He gave the example, "I could shoot someone in the yes," but I mean, it doesn't matter what he says or does. He's not going to lose. People are he's going to have 37% of people that will support him.
Yeah.
Right? You may be able to swap out, the bottom 5% depending on what he says or does, but you're going to have that, 30 to 32% who are just going to back him just because he told us he was going to build a wall.
For crying out loud, Steve, why not even make it sound like a power move against the gangs? Like, I'm taking away $80 billion a year from the Mexican cartels.
Right, there's a
play
million,
that card.
Right, there's a million ways a number of ways he could play it, and I think it works. I think it works for him in his favor, and it's you would be hard pressed as a Democrat then. Because you know what's going to happen. They're going to pull he's a racist, right? He's not doing anything for the black community, and don't get fooled by the lowest unemployment rate for blacks and Hispanics. There's still a gap, and he's still not doing anything for you, and that number is flawed, and blah, 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 blah. You know what you're going to hear. We all know what we're going to hear from both sides.
Sure.
We already know exactly what we're going to hear, and that's a way for him to flip the script and kind of change up what the narrative is at that point.
Agreed. But anyway, I want people to know that those bills are out there because I talk to people that I've been, at my bar with one of my girls I'm friends with, and she hates politics. So she won't listen to our show because she hates politics.
Fair.
And I said, I want you to look at something political. She was like, nope. I'm like, look at this political thing. Nope. And I flipped it around and pointed to it. She looked and went, oh. And so people who normally don't care about politics care about this.
Fair.
And if you want to, again, whether you're a Democrat pushing for it as a 2020 candidate or Trump now to head that off the pass, there's a lot of folks out there who generally give no fucks, who care about this, whether it's because they think it's stupid that it's illegal or because they're casual users or not so casual users.
Or they're heavily invested. That someone soon is going to see the light. And heavily invested is a broad term, whether you've invested in stocks or you have, invested in actual cannabis by opening up a dispensary, or you're a grower, you've got a lab, or
you're a regular user.
You're a user, or you supply some sort of, ancillary, products to the cannabis industry, whatever it might be. There's a number of people who are invested in it because they see the light at the end of the tunnel, but they just can't
I've
gauge.
got money invested in it.
Right, they just can't gauge what the distance of that light to where we are right now. So we'll see.
Okay, all right. So let's do some football talk because Cleveland kind of made the national news by signing Kareem Hunt. If you don't know the story, Kareem Hunt, while in the city of Cleveland at a very fancy downtown hotel, got into an altercation with a woman where he shoved her and kicked her. We can argue that, it could have been worse. It definitely could have. But what he did was fucking disgusting.
It was wrong. Shouldn't have done it.
Right.
Yes.
So now he gets cut. So he does that. He lies to the Chiefs about what actually happened. Video comes out. They cut him essentially immediately. Now, is it John Dorsey who's the GM?
John Dorsey is the GM of the Cleveland Browns. He was formerly the GM of the Kansas City Chiefs.
He drafted Kareem Hunt.
Right, he drafted Kareem Hunt.
Out of Toledo?
Yes.
Okay.
And Kareem Hunt is a hell of a talent.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which is why this is even a thing. Right?
If he was a Ray Rice talent, Ray Rice was talented in his day, but he was a lot of tread off the tires by the time his incident happened.
Kareem Hunt is 23 years old and he's a solid running back.
Yeah.
He's
one of the best in the league, yeah. Top 5 in the league.
So the reason why we're having this conversation is because of his talent level.
Yep.
And looking at what he did, all the cliche stuff is out there. It's horrible. It's the worst thing.
It was
never
awful.
put your hands on a woman. Yes, all that stuff.
Kicking her when she was down was my.
I have a different view on it. I won't get into it because it's just not popular. I have my thoughts on the girl herself. Like I said, I won't get into it because I will. I don't know if she was planted there, but she was pushing that situation, hoping that it was getting to that point.
Do you think? Why do you say that? She was definitely antagonizing. I think there was a lot of alcohol and/or other substances involved.
When she called him a nigger, it's hard to argue.
I didn't know she did that.
Yeah, she called him.
I've only seen the video with no sound.
She called him a nigger and spit in his face. So
okay,
those are things that tend to rub people the wrong way.
If you spit in my face, I would handle that very badly.
Now, again, you got to have control. You're an NFL player. You're being paid lots of money. The rules are different for you. You have to be able to control yourself, and this is where who you put yourself around matters. But let's that
it's not a forgive the expression.
Yes.
It's not a black and white situation.
Well, it's not the Ray White situation, right? I mean, like Ray White. I mean, it just
right.
It's different. But that being said, he's got to control himself. He's got to control his anger. Once you kick her out of the room, she's out of the room, and no matter what she says or does, at that point in time, you call the police and have them deal with her. Or you call
2 words.
You call hotel.
Bye, Felicia.
Right. You call hotel security or whatever, and you just like, listen, she's out. Whatever. Now the issue with her, and I firmly believe that and we saw this with Garyon Conley, right?
Okay.
Where do you remember Garyon Conley's situation?
I don't.
He was a DB out of Ohio State. He ended up with the Raiders. He met a girl at the Barley House. They walked out together.
She made a bunch of accusations. They ended up being...
Right, because he kicked her out of the room, and then he left it alone, and then she got really upset, and then she, accused him of rape. That was clearly not the case. There was a ton of evidence that showed that's not what happened, based on video from the bar, based on video at the hotel, and other things. And
good old Barley House. We got the 9 in Barley House.
Right, Cleveland.
Barley House has been good to us.
It has. But that's why, this sort of situation for NFL players, and this is why it's important that these teams work with these guys and explain to them, that they're constantly, you are constantly being targeted.
Right.
You are constantly being profiled, and you are constantly under attack. Right, I mean, and you have to be able to control yourself. You have to be aware of your surroundings. And it's 2018, 19, 20. You have to assume that you're being recorded.
Right. Oh,
you have to.
That's true in everyone and everything now, right?
I mean, but you have to assume that you're being recorded. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. You have to control your alcohol consumption. You have to you need to make sure that you have people around you that you can trust, so that if you do have too much, that they can control themselves and that they can protect you, which he had, it looked like in that video, people that were trying to hold him back.
Yeah. On the other hand, if the average defensive lineman in the NFL can't hold Kareem Hunt back.
Right. I mean, and then the group of people he had, clearly were not sufficient. Right. I mean, that's like me getting blacked out drunk and then you and pick somebody trying to prevent me from losing my shit. Right. I mean, it would not go well.
I don't want to try that experiment.
Right. I mean, and all that being said, I don't like the situation. I think that what he did was wrong. I don't like the girl. I think that she is not innocent in all of this, but he still holds the ultimate responsibility in his behavior and in his actions. And so I don't have a problem with the Browns doing what they're doing, because this is a very low risk, high reward. They're paying him nothing, relatively speaking, and compared to what the contract, what his ultimate value is as a player on the field. He's got a 1-year contract worth $1 million with some incentives, and he's obviously on a zero tolerance policy.
Sure.
Right? He fucks up, he's gone. Right? Theoretically, he could be gone before the season even starts. They could punt him, and they don't have to pay him a dime. Right? So it's a very low risk situation for them. The upside is he cleans up his act. He surrounds himself with better people. He stays away from certain people. And then he's the same player on the field as he was when he was with Kansas City. And now all of a sudden, Cleveland has 3 running backs, high talent, high caliber, very potent, very dangerous. I think they take the PR hit now. And then as the postseason, off season rolls on, you have the combine coming up. You have free agency coming up. The Steelers are doing them a favor because Antonio Brown has lost his fucking mind. You still have the Le'Veon Bell situation as it's going to play out.
Do you want to talk about Antonio Brown? We just put that on the board.
Right. I mean, you've got other trades that could or may not happen, and then you've got camp and all that stuff. So this will fade away. It'll come back up.
It almost already has.
Right, and it'll come back up. Right, it'll come back up.
It'll come back when he carries the ball.
Right, and there will be, women's groups and domestic violence groups that are not happy with this and really will come out against him. And if Kareem Hunt is listening, my suggestion to him is, one, obviously take this seriously, but you're going to have to show people that you're you're a changed man.
Right.
You can't be seen out in the club. Like, you lose that privilege, right? Like, you've lost that privilege. This isn't the only incident. Like, he got into a fight with a guy in Put in Bay. He got into a fight with another guy at another bar. So he can no longer, for the sake of his own career, he can no longer be seen out at clubs and, popping bottles and all that stuff.
Some idiot will start a fight with you.
Hold on. He can't, that's now out the window. He's going to have to protect himself with who he puts around him, right? And then he's going to have to actually go out and be an advocate. He's going to have to talk to young players. He's going to have to talk to young kids. He's going to talk about, self-control, whether it's drinking or anger or whatever. He's going to have to go out and tell them his story on how he fucked up and how he righted his ship. And he's going to have to do that likely for the rest of his career. And if I were him, as much as I can't stand Chris Carter, I would reach out to Chris Carter.
I would call LeBron James.
Okay. I mean...
Cleveland...
No, but LeBron's never had a problem. LeBron's never done anything
wrong.
LeBron
knows how to tell guys how to keep their shit together.
Fine, but Chris Carter...
did not keep his shit together.
Chris Carter did not keep his shit together for a long time. Almost killed himself with his drug abuse and the shit that he was doing to himself. And then he was able to right the ship, become a Hall of Fame player, and is now still relevant in the world of sports analysis and everything else. And so Chris Carter is someone who, I've been there. You're not as bad as I was. So listen, these are the things that you can do to prevent yourself from getting to where I was. As much as I
why don't you like Chris Carter?
He just
I like Chris Carter.
Yeah, he's just too much of a company man for me. Anything the NFL says, and I get he's got to be that way because of his past, so he'll never speak ill of the NFL. He won't criticize them. Everything they say is right. Well, everything the players, if a player disagrees with the, if a player,
I'm a big fan of Chris Carter. I remember him talking about the fight that Dante Culpepper, Randy Moss, and he had on the sideline, and the three of them were just in each other's faces. It looked awful. And when Chris Carter got questioned about it, he goes, "You don't think that happens every game?"
Yeah, I mean, and listen, he's
one of the best receivers.
Yeah,
ever
he's one of the best receivers. I respect him as a player. I respect his experience, which is why I'm saying that's a guy that Kareem Hunt needs to go talk to.
And what I respect about him the most is how, well, not respect about him, but one of the most interesting things about him is his natural position was quarterback, and he was told when he came to Ohio State, I don't think they probably said, "You're black, you're not a quarterback," but he felt like he was denied a chance to play quarterback because of his color.
And
he's not wrong.
A ton of guys, though.
That's
Hines Ward, that's Anton Randall L. That's Tony Dungy.
But hold on. Anton Randall L. and Hines Ward played it in college.
Yes.
Chris
didn't even get to play
it in college.
But
isn't it generation older?
Isn't it worse for the other guys though, who actually played, showed that they had the skill set, led teams to winning records?
Yeah, and now you're a receiver.
Right, and now you're a receiver.
All right, so on that topic,
the Steelers had three of them on the roster at the same time: Cordell Stewart, Anton Randall L., and Hines Ward.
Did they overlap? Did all three
overlap?
Yes, they were all.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Well, maybe not Anton Randall L.
And Cordell Stewart did sort of get a chance to play quarterback.
Kind of, sort of, yeah.
Kind of. All right, so on the topic of NFL quarterbacks, Colin Kaepernick settled his...
Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid both settled their collusion case against the NFL. And this is interesting. Mark Geragos, who was Colin Kaepernick's lawyer, I believe he may or may not have been Eric Reid's. I can't remember if he was Eric Reid's lawyer as well. But I know for sure that Mark Geragos was Colin Kaepernick's lawyer, and he put out a statement that said, the NFL and Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid have come to an agreement, a settlement, and due to the confidentiality statement, there will be nothing else said about this by any party. I
read that.
And it was short and sweet. It was a nice little paragraph. It could have fit on a business card, and that was it. And let me ask you, what do you think that means?
Well, first of all, whenever they say, "and let's never speak of this again,"
yep,
it means that they're afraid of this coming down on them at a bunch of other angles.
Who?
And
who's afraid?
The NFL.
Yes.
The NFL protects its brand. First of all, the NFL, look, we are both fucking hypocrites and idiots about the NFL because we both complain about things and then we both spend every Sunday watching fucking 6 hours or more of football. Good job, guys. I'm admitting you own me as a sports fan, and I'm pathetic. And I've been cheering for a team that has sucked balls for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing that.
Yeah,
they're
not getting better.
They're getting better.
Oh,
they are. We're gonna go to this. We're gonna do this now.
No,
this is going to go from a
legitimate
conversation to let's talk shit like it's Sunday. Okay. But truly, the NFL has protected its brand incredibly effectively. You could criticize their product with good logic over the last decade. I mean, between slowing the game down with replays and blown calls despite having all that shit, and the fact that the Saints got screwed out of the Super Bowl on one of the most awful blown calls ever. Yada, yada, yada.
And more people watch that than they watched anything else.
And I'm one of them. So, I mean, I can talk all the shit I want. I know what I'm doing the first Sunday in September or second.
Can't wait.
I'm
legitimately planning.
I'm so much worse. Probably, I might be worse than you.
You're not worse
because I have time on my hands now. If you put these motherfuckers put out. And our newest mock draft is out. And my dumbass will spend 5 minutes scrolling through a mock draft. Like, these fucking guys know shit.
I do the same thing.
It's horrible. Why?
I do the same thing.
That is the definition of addiction, isn't it?
And if you think about where my team drafts every year.
Right, you're drafting late 20s.
Right. The Steelers typically draft in the mid to late 20s. This year, I think we draft like 17 or 18. So it's a little bit more interesting. But back to the point. Listen, the NFL, Roger Goodell led... with the very, listen, they make double-digit $1 billion a year,
right?
Each year. I mean, they pay some pretty good.
They
lawyers.
Could build a wall by themselves.
They literally could.
But they'd rather build a super amazing stadium in Los Angeles.
Shit, Jerry Jones and what's his name of the Redskins,
Daniel
Snyder. I mean, they could probably build a quarter of the wall themselves
with money that they picked out of the couch cushions.
Right, with fuck you money. So, that being said, listen, the NFL took Tom Brady and the Patriots and Robert Kraft to court over some air and some footballs.
And I'm glad they did, but okay.
And they won. They literally beat those guys in the ground. They won that case. The NFL is not afraid of going to court. They're not afraid.
Are not.
They are not afraid of, like, you sue them, they're like, we will sue, like, we'll crush you, right? We'll crush you with motions and we'll crush you with data and blah, 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 blah. And think about it. Robert Kraft is not short on money.
He can do it okay.
You know what I mean? Like, Robert Kraft isn't afraid of a lawsuit either, and Robert Kraft lost that suit to the league, right? Yeah. Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid do not have Robert Kraft money. And the league caved on this. This isn't Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid saying, you know what, we're tired of this, we're going to cave.
Right.
Why would they?
And more importantly, the NFL was, okay, we'll cave, but no one gets to say a fucking word.
No one says a word. No one gets to see a single bit of evidence. They don't get to see an email or a text message. And why do you think that is, given what this case was and what it was about?
Absolutely.
Right?
They did not want to have to admit wrongdoing. They didn't want to have to admit how much money they paid out. They didn't want to admit, yeah, Colin, we discriminated against you because you knelt during the national anthem and sat during the national anthem, and it cost us money. And
listen, what we do know, people are stupid.
Oh, we know
that. It doesn't matter how much money you've made. It doesn't matter that you're a billionaire. It doesn't matter that you run a Fortune 500, top 10 company. What we do know is that humans are humans and they do dumb shit. And with the age of smartphones and the ability to communicate with people as quickly as we can, I guarantee you that two of those dumbass owners had some sort of a conversation on electronic communication via text.
I didn't know where you were going.
Via email.
I'm sure you're right.
That flat out said, fuck that guy. I'm not drafting him. I'm not signing him. Yeah. And you better not either. Fuck him, fuck that. I guarantee you there's something along those lines right there that buried the NFL, and as soon as it came out, they were all like, God damn it.
Because damn it, Jerry, why'd you have to text that to
Daniel?
By
their own rules, what collusion is if one, two or more, right? All you need is two to tango, right? Two or more, whether it's the owners, like one owner in the league, or two owners, or whatever, all you need is two to say, screw you, we're not going to sign you because of this. And then that's collusion.
And the NFL has to, and unlike the Russia collusion thing, this isn't a court of law. This is a court of public opinion thing as much as anything else. I mean, court of law also matters. It's both. But if word got out that, this was said by so-and-so, that damages their image, it damages their product, and they don't let that happen.
Right. I mean, and who knows who it was, right?
Right.
I mean, and we don't know what it was, whether it was an email, whether it was a text or whatever, and we don't know and maybe there was just enough circumstantial
It could
evidence.
even be just how many mistresses NFL owners and executives have.
Right. I mean, it could be.
We didn't have any collusion, but Bambi over here says you paid $135,000 to shut up, and that beats the...
Right. Or who knows? I mean, who knows what the situation was? But there was something to the point where the NFL, the NFL handled this wrong from the get-go.
Sure.
Right. I mean, they flip-flopped back and forth. They didn't have a solid stance. They did this. They wavered. They blah blah blah. They gave money. And they're still fighting the case. And so they didn't handle it great from the beginning. And then for them to settle like this, and then to say, listen. No one can know. Blah blah blah. So we're not even going to know what he's getting paid,
right?
Because it's a settlement.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick's not paying the NFL.
No,
right?
no.
In this situation,
that is clear. So
what we do know though is that the NFL is paying Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reid probably a pretty fair, substantial amount of money.
It was not in the six figures. It was in seven and. Probably in seven figures.
Colin is probably not worried about playing football anymore.
Right. But I want to put one point out there, though. One thing that cannot be denied is that many players with lesser resumes and talent than Colin Kaepernick got jobs in the NFL.
Yes.
Have jobs in the NFL.
Not got, have.
I mean, look.
Nathan Peterman is like... Nathan Peterman.
You know what? You're right, but fuck you.
Right.
I was dealing with Mark Sanchez. Thought we could have a mutual like.
I mean, almost every backup quarterback on every team, right? I mean, come on now.
When the Bills signed Matt Barkley, I would have argued that Kaepernick was a better choice, but then Matt Barkley ended up playing really well. But I was dealing with Mark Sanchez. Peter, fine. You're not wrong.
I mean, listen. I think it's interesting. What comes of this? I don't know. I mean, no one's going to sign Colin Kaepernick at this point. I doubt. I mean, I can't see anyone doing it.
Well, now he's 3 years removed, right?
No.
This will be his third year.
No,
he was out for the last 2 years.
He played in 17. He played in 17,
18.
and he was out all 18. He played in 2017.
Okay,
he finished the game. I watched the game. San Francisco played the Bears.
I'm old. My memory's shaky.
Kaepernick actually played a good game. I mean, I think he went like. And the only reason I actually know the numbers because I looked them up not that long ago. I think he was like 22 for 35 for 290 yards passing, a touchdown, no picks. But they lost the game.
Okay,
and mind you, San Francisco is terrible, right?
Was terrible, yeah.
Right. No, they're still bad. They're picking like number 3 in the draft.
Well, they lost their quarterback in the first week of the season or whatever.
Okay. But anyway, so, it's interesting. Like, he's only really been out a year. It seems longer. Like, the drama's been going on.
It really does seem longer.
The drama's been
we've been
going
talking
on.
about this forever.
Right, the drama's been going on.
He was still in the league when the drama started.
Right. So he's only been out a season. And so the question is, now that it's all over, this has been settled, does someone out there say, okay, can we sign him? It's just like, or do they continue to blackball him and it just be this weird, awkward thing that we have?
Who knows if their settlement was part of the settlement was, and you don't get to play with us anymore, but here's $20 million.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe,
and if I'm Colin Kaepernick, I go, thank you.
Yep. Me too. I mean, it's like, goddamn. I mean, it's just like, what's your price? $20 million is my price.
Yeah. And, if you're the NFL, you go, $20 million.
Right. 20. We would have gave you 40.
That's the insurance we pay on our yachts every year.
We have no idea how much it was.
No,
and unfortunately, we can't. Like,
do you think it'll leak? Do you think it will leak at some point?
God, if I were a bank teller,
I know you want to know this so bad.
If I were a bank teller at fucking Wells Fargo or wherever the fuck he banks, I'd just be in the system like, oh boy. Oh boy!
This got handled by wire transfer, not a check.
They put a whole lot of money in his account. He can fund all the black youth centers in America that he wants to.
And he that probably wouldn't be far from what he would use his money for. He's been a very charitable guy.
You gotta wonder. Now it's gonna eat at my soul. I want to know. I want to know what
just knowing you. I know how much this is bothering you. Like, damn it.
Because I'm thinking, because like,
can Colin get me on the boat that I want to buy?
Seriously,
I know that.
But I think, like, so anytime you're dealing with a settlement, like, there's always a formula, right, that you put together. And so I'm thinking that they looked at the fact that he was a second-round pick. They look at past performance. They look at, he did
lead the team to a Super Bowl.
Right. Like, you look at money he could have potentially got. He...
now I'm wondering what the number.
Right, he opted out of a $16 million contract, but then, you have to wonder if there isn't the whole kneeling thing and the backlash. Does he end up getting, maybe, was it, like, so did they look at it and say, your potential losses, right, from being blackballed in the league were around $60 to $90 million, looking at what quarterbacks are making. That's
a very reasonable number. Yeah.
Right, and then I know Mark Garagos. I've studied Mark Garagos as an attorney for a long time, and he's not going to just let him say, based off of performance and potential contracts, there's the pain and suffering and punitive and all that other stuff, right? So I'm sure Mark Garagos had, an additional $10, $20, $30 million lumped into there, which is, these numbers are astronomical, by the way.
Yes.
Right? Now, Eric Reid's situation might be a little bit different because it was like, hey, you just signed I think Eric Reid just got a deal for...
I don't know.
For $12 million a year, something like that. Or no, maybe not $12 million. I don't know.
He's a corner, right?
He's a safety.
Safety.
But I know he just signed a multi-year deal that was worth in the,
30, 40 million, whatever.
Yeah. So he just got a solid deal. And so I just have to wonder, maybe his is offset a little bit by the fact that of what he's now getting paid. So maybe his is, here's the money that you lost for that year that you had to sit out, right? And then here's some punitive pain and suffering, whatever. And then Colin, sorry, bro, no one's going to sign you, for whatever. So here's your full thing.
Truthfully, kind of back to the Kareem Hunt thing, the stain on Kareem Hunt, and he got signed. Eric Reid does not have the same stain on him, and I'm using that word as respectfully as I can, sorry, but as Colin Kaepernick, right? No one's going to go, holy fuck, Eric Reid's back in the league?
Yeah, the Breitbart crowd lost their shit.
But they're fucking morons.
Okay, but that's,
that
crowd elected a president.
Let me put it in another context. If I went to my buddies in West Virginia from college and said, hey, can you believe Colin Kaepernick re-signed with a team? They'd lose their shit. If I said, can you believe Eric Reid signed with a team? They would go, who?
Maybe. It depends on how tuned in they are, which is fair.
True.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, it'll be. I guess there's nothing to see at this point.
Right. Literally nothing to see. We can't show you anything
here.
We will not show you anything because we don't want to admit how much we paid.
Somebody will find out and throw out an estimated number.
My buddies at TMZ, who we've talked about multiple times, they will try.
No.
You don't think so?
No.
All right.
No. I think that they're a little bit more. I think that
it's not such a scandal.
Well, it's not a scandal, and I think that the NFL has them in a. I think that the NFL is in their pocket, or
they're in the NFL's
pocket a little bit, in terms
of. They haven't been shy about putting videos out. Zay Jones is the one sticking out of my head right now. I know that wasn't that big of a deal, but holy shit.
They put individual videos out about guys or whatever, but I think that those videos are verified and chances are they're going to come out anyway.
And that's why I love TMZ, is as scummy as they are, and they are fucking scummy, but they've never been caught in a lie that I'm aware of, and for the simple reason that they can't, right? They are one blatant lie away from being done.
Well, we saw that with. Who are the ones with Hulk Hogan?
Bubba the Love Sponge was the guy, and what was the name of the company?
Was it BuzzFeed?
It was BuzzFeed.
Okay.
No, it wasn't BuzzFeed. It was fuck.
Well, whoever they are, they're gone.
Yeah,
they're gone.
Yeah, they got crushed by. No, BuzzFeed was the one that released that other shit. It'll come to me 20 minutes after we stop recording. Real quick, earlier in this week, Stephen A. Smith made a really dumb analysis. He claimed that Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback from Iowa State, who broke Drew Brees' record as a passing quarterback in the Big Ten by throwing 50 touchdown passes in a season, which is fucking ridiculous. And Stephen A. Smith said that he thinks he's more of a runner than a passer, and he thinks that Kyler Murray is a better prospect. Now, whether or not Kyler Murray is a better prospect, we can debate, and I'm happy to. You're right. I agree.
There's no debate.
I agree. But
all right, let me cut you off. So, just to clear this up for our non-college football people or non-Ohio State people or whatever, Dwayne Haskins is not a running quarterback at all. He was very reluctant to run. I mean, he did only when he had to, and he only had a number of 4 or 5 games with more than 20 yards.
I think it was 3
or more than with double-digit
numbers. Yeah,
right,
I think it was 3.
I mean, right. So he's not a runner, and this was Stephen A. Smith kind of talking about something that he didn't follow, didn't pay attention to, and he throws something out there. I'm not sure why he did it. I'm not sure why he even felt compelled to comment on it.
That's a great question because when you don't know what the fuck you're talking to.
Right, and what's weird though is that they do show prep with these shows, and they whether it's First Take or whatever, he's got ample opportunity to kind of shed this out, and so it's weird that he throws that out there, and it's so blatantly wrong. Right. I mean, and the reason why, I mean, it's listen, and people could say, oh, well, you guys have thrown out things that aren't accurate and factual or whatever. All right, well, fair.
I can throw out opinions, and, and my opinions can be wrong.
Right. I mean,
however,
yes.
if I claim that,
But the difference is, this is something that's, he is in sports, that's his job, and it's on TV every week for 3 months.
Right.
It's not hard to do it's easy, it's easy to pull up a clip of, Dwayne Haskins highlights. It'll take you 5 minutes to look at Dwayne Haskins highlights, and you're just
and there might be 2 runs in there.
Maybe.
And
I doubt there
17
are. None of his runs are
laser
impressive.
throw.
I watched almost every single Ohio State game this year, and none of his runs were impressive. Right? They were all ooh, just get down, get out of bounds, get out of bounds, right? Just throw it. You're really good at that. You're not good at this. So, I guess, listen, he works for ESPN. He's got he's got the show on TV, First Take, and then he's got a radio show, and he's a busy guy.
Sure.
Right? I mean,
and he's an NBA guy first and foremost.
Right. I mean, so listen, it's
Which
not
just shows you up. But Steve, let me say something weird. When I heard that comment, and knowing that it was so stupid, and I'm actually a fan of Stephen Smith, to be honest with you. I was so glad a white guy didn't say that, because if you were that wrong about a guy, and we were talking earlier about prejudice against black quarterbacks, if you would have claimed Dwayne Haskins was more of a let's convert this guy to receiver type of guy, people would have lost their minds, and justifiably so. It would have been. This is one of those cases where if a white guy had said this, you would say this is racist. And in this case, we can say this isn't racism; it's just dumb. And sometimes dumb.
Yeah, dumb happens.
Dumb happens.
Dumb happens. I mean, and so I think we gotta if we see something like this from someone white, I mean, we have to look at
maybe they're just dumb.
Right. I mean, it's just well, let's look at what do they know? Are they well versed in college football? Do they pay attention to it, or do they just throw something out there? And that happens, and so we got to be careful. I think we got to be careful with is just even sometimes asking if things are racist, right?
Right,
and not jumping to that conclusion. And just I think we need to start with, is this person just an idiot? Right. I mean, and I think if you start there, I think you resolve a lot of issues before you go to the socio-political stuff. I think if you can just hang out, before you go to making assumptions and accusations, and just go to, is this person an idiot? Right? Or did they have just a moment of idiocy?
Malice, you're right.
Or
you're right. They don't have to be a full-time idiot. They can be a part-time idiot.
I mean, and I think a lot of times that resolves a lot of some of the issues that pop up that people want to get into all the socio-political stuff. And the reason why they do it is because it draws attention. It draws clicks. It draws views. It draws ratings, whatever. But sometimes I think when you're just trying to kind of peel back the layers, you're just like, you know what? Dude was an idiot, made a stupid mistake.
I worked with a guy who, was a fellow consultant, and he once said to me, Never attribute to malice what can be easily blamed on stupidity. Or maybe never automatically attribute to malice what can be easily blamed on stupidity. And that advice has served me well on multiple occasions.
I don't think that's his quote, by the way.
Probably not.
Pretty sure
Probably not. But fine. It's not.
Right. But either way.
But it's a quote
it's
worth sharing
yes.
and worth using. On that note, brother, I'm ready to close up. If you are.
Shut her down.
Shut her down. Good talking to you. We are at Whiskey Congress on all social media platforms. We are Jim at Whiskey Congress if you want to email me. Steve at Whiskey Congress if you want to email him. If you want to email me about the Jussie Smollett thing, I would ask you to email Steve instead because I'm tired of fighting about it, but the mystery goes on.
How do I get this shit?
I've got the mic. I'm shutting it down.
We both have mics.
We do.
Email Jim about it. I don't give a shit.
All right, good night. See ya.